John Soaring Meadow was in trouble, and he knew it. The winds were fierce and blowing hard from the south, carrying the cinders and spark that grew the great fire. He had been holed up for 2 days, content that this too shall pass, but now he realized that his sacred place of shelter must be abandoned if he wanted to live. The smoke had filtered down into his dirt cave, despite the barriers of bark and rock. He was out of water and had only a small butt of a joint left, along with some chewing meat. His plan to fish the Perigo Creek was no longer an option, but at least the fast-flowing water had provided shelter. He crawled out of the hole and surveyed a scene of destruction from the forest below. Smoke covered everything as far as the eye could see, and he wondered how far down the conflagration had traveled. He could not smell the ocean, which was a bad sign, and now the winds were whipping around his ears. It was his habit to consider all aspects of a problem in a slow, calm manner, but circumstances prevented such folly. If he was to survive, he must find a way out of the forest to reach the sea. He must travel by water. It was the only way. Anyone could see that. He hoped the chopper that flew overhead might spot him and report his travels, but he could not know that he was invisible to the pilots below the thick layer of smoke. It didn't matter. They would not rescue him. He was an Esalen warrior, a member of the honorable tribe of Native Americans, trained from childhood to live in the wild. He never doubted that he would escape and saved his energy for the journey. Cassie tore out of the gravel road from my cottage and headed south on Lime Creek, pushing the pedal of the little red Mercedes to the floor on a stretch of road that she knew well from her biking days. When she was forced to slow down, she pulled over and tried to put the top down. It took her a few minutes to figure out which button to push, and then it wouldn't work. She got out and opened the trunk, discovering the vinyl slider that has to be in place in order to receive the top. Soon the windows lowered and the top unlatched in splendid sweeping motion, disappearing into the trunk. "Whoo-wee!" she cried, standing on the seat as the cars whizzed past her. She pulled back on the road in front of a big white truck, causing him to brake seriously to avoid her, and she laughed as she sped away from them. The fire in her belly was flamed from the tequila and bolstered by the possession of her favorite car. She had always wanted to do this, and by God, here she was. It was a dream come true. She was one tough chick, ready to rock. The white pickup came around the curve and headed toward her, braking 90 miles an hour to catch up. She saw them in the rear view and wondered if they wanted to play. Screw them, she thought. I'll give them a chase in that old bomb. She slowed down long enough to let them get closer and waited for a double passage that was coming up. When they pulled alongside, the driver hung his bearded head out the window and shouted at Cassie, tossing a can of beer in the seat next to her. She didn't miss a trick, lobbing the foaming can back under the tires of the truck. She zoomed away after giving them the finger and howled for miles at the thought of the noise that can made in the wheel well. Tough luck, guys. Don't mess with me. It was getting dark when Cassie rounded a curve over the massive cliffs of Big Sur and fumbled for the lights on the dash. Coming up behind her without his lights was the big white truck, on a mission to teach her a lesson. By the time she saw them behind her, he was going full speed ahead and rammed her bumper furiously. The little car swerved but held the road, and Cassie hit the gas, determined to outrun them. Soon they were riding close behind her again, forging ahead to ram her car as they came into a curve. She slid over into the northbound lane and tried to correct, but they rammed her again and again. The driver would say later that he never meant to hurt her, that it was all a game. But at that moment, he was blind with rage and drunk out of his mind. She never had a chance.